Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today we're going to be going through our Week 4 trade targets. That's right. You're going to get 2 from Steve and 2 from Joe.
Hike!
All right, Joe. So why don't we start off with your first trade target? Who are you going for and why?
Yeah, I'm going to start off here with wide receiver Tyreek Hill, and got his current trade value at 71. And reason I would go ahead and trade for him is I feel like some owners might be panicking on him because of the quarterback situation without Tua. Last couple weeks has not been very good. He's still getting these, 6 and 5 targets, but only 3 catches in back-to-back weeks, and only scoring about 7 points in PPR the last couple weeks as well. But Skylar Thompson got hurt last week. I don't think it'll be Boyle. I honestly think Huntley might get the start here, and that's what I'd be more encouraged by if Huntley goes ahead and gets a start. I mean, we've seen him be productive in Baltimore, and I feel like he could figure out ways to get it to Tyreek Hill, and the Dolphins will still manufacture touches for Tyreek Hill. He is their superstar player, but I could see why other teams might be nervous. So now would be the point to go ahead and get him before, he has a good week, and then, owners might feel comfortable. So a couple of players I might be willing to go ahead and acquire him for, I think a package deal, could make some sense. Maybe you take, running back like Brian Robinson Jr., Tony Pollard, and maybe you couple him with a Stephon Diggs who's had, a good week last week and has seen to get a decent amount of targets for the Houston Texans offense.
Do you think that would be enough to get the deal done for the Tyreek Hill owner?
Possibly. I mean, you might have to give it more, but I mean, based off of our going by the trade value charts and the numbers, those 2 players would theoretically equate. I know that it's just numbers, and it's up to the owner to go ahead and accept that. But maybe a team, even with Tyreek Hill, if maybe they've had a bad start because they drafted Tyreek Hill high, expecting a big start, and maybe they just want some solid producers for their team.
Yeah, according to Draft Sharks here, this trade chart we're referencing, the only players ahead of him right now are Malik Neighbors, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Rashee Rice, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and CeeDee Lamb at the wide receiver position. I think, I would probably – would you – let me ask you this. Would you rather have Hill or Neighbors for the rest of the year?
Oh, I feel like probably just Malik Neighbors.
Really?
Yeah, just because he's been good, and he's the guy for the Giants, where the Dolphins, I just don't know what they're exactly doing on offense. I know they've had bad quarterback play, and that's why maybe Huntley can turn it around, but I don't know. Just as long as Daniel Jones is healthy, I think I'd rather just have Neighbors.
See, I think I'd rather have Hill.
See, that's where it was tough for me. That's why I was trying to find maybe some 2-for-1 deal you could go for him, because I don't know if I'd necessarily want to trade those guys ahead of Hill, or to go and get Hill, but maybe you find a 2-for-1 deal that makes sense.
Are you enjoying this episode so far? Well, if you are, subscribe to our YouTube channel, smash that like button, and hit the notification bell for upcoming videos. We do videos throughout the year, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store. So my first trade target that I'm recommending you go out and get is wide receiver Rome Odunze, rookie for the Chicago Bears. He's starting to heat up, and this might be considered a buy high, but I think it's still at a price that I'm okay with. According to the Draft Sharks trade value chart here, he's at a 28. That means you could be trading him and acquiring him for players such as Jaden Reed, Tank Dell, Terry McLaurin, Stephon Diggs, Amari Cooper. Certainly most of those names. Deontay seems to be pretty hot after what he did with Andy Dalton. But I think I definitely would be willing to trade Amari Cooper, Tank Dell, Terry McLaurin, Jaden Reed for Rome Odunze. And I think you could do a package deal. I think what excites me about him is that I think he may now become the number one piece in the offense. We always thought it could be, at least I thought it could be DJ Moore. But DJ Moore
I still think it is.
Well, he could, and the squeaky wheel could get the grease, but I think that he's consistently getting frustrated. But if you look over the past 2 weeks, Rome Odunze and DJ Moore, pretty similar. I mean, DJ Moore had 69 snaps to Rome Odunze's 66, and they only had one route difference, so 46 and 45. DJ Moore ended up having 10 targets that game, Rome Odunze having 4 in week 2. Mind you, that's no Keenan Allen. Then in the past week, no Keenan Allen as well. Rome Odunze actually outsnapped DJ Moore with 89. Routes run 55, outsnapped him by 1, and then he had one other target. And then obviously this most recent game against the Colts, which isn't great, 11 targets, 6 catches, 112 yards, and a touchdown. Now he's playing the Rams, and the Rams secondary is an absolute sieve. I expect Rome Odunze to have a really good week this week. And so I think by that time it'll be too late. Once you have a back-to-back really good week, it's pretty hard for them to be pried away. So if they're going to trade for him, I think I trade for him now. So those are some players I would be willing to go for, some of the ones I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I mean, DJ Moore has still gotten 28 targets over the year, which is 8 more than Rome Odunze. To me, DJ Moore's still the number one guy in the offense. He just hasn't quite had the production. I'm actually more interested in DJ Moore as a buy low on this offense, and I like we just saw Amari Cooper, right? He was really disappointing the first 2 weeks, but then he came out last week and had 2 touchdowns. I think DJ Moore could do something similar here, especially this week in a really juicy matchup.
And I think Caleb is going to settle a little bit. I think
we started to see that with the rookie quarterbacks. Like told you to be patient with Terry McLaurin. Finally saw something with Jaden Daniels. I think with these rookie quarterbacks, it's a tough transition. I think you just got to stay patient with them, and I think eventually the production will come.
So, Joe, who is your second trade target?
Yep, I'm going to stay with the wide receiver position here and going to go with wide receiver Mike Evans. And a big reason why is everyone is talking about Chris Godwin and how good he's been. And I still feel like Mike Evans is getting overlooked. He's had back-to-back weeks at, subpar 7.2 PPR points, 3.7, 9 targets over the 2 games, and then, 3 receptions in week 2, and then only 2 last week against the Denver Broncos. But so far, the Broncos have been pretty stingy against wide receivers and pretty good on defense as well. And, Mike Evans, he's currently sitting at 48 on the Draft Sharks trade value chart as well. Look, this guy could just consistently get 1,000-yard seasons. Like you can pretty much, if you can guarantee anything in fantasy football, it's the fact that this guy is going to get 1,000 yards. And he's going to have some boom and bust games like he did week 1. He had 2 touchdowns. Everyone is happy. He was over 20 points in PPR. But you're going to get a couple of duds in there. And I think if maybe, owners watching the game and just seeing how Godwin's been consistently scoring, Evans is just a different player. He's going to boom. So I think now would be the time to go ahead and get him before a potential boom happens. Because like you said, once people see a boom happen and players start scoring more, it's harder to pry the player away. So, I mean, based on the value chart here, it might be hard to trade Deebo Samuel, but just because he's hurt, but I'd probably rather have Mike Evans going forward than Deebo. Probably be willing to trade like Chris Olave and Drake London as well for Mike Evans.
Would you rather have Chris Godwin or Mike Evans rest of the year?
I think it depends on like the build of my team, because I think Chris Godwin will be that more consistent scorer for you. And I think he might get the more receptions and just be that more consistent scorer. But if we're talking about like boom weeks, and we saw week 1 where Mike Evans can get a couple touchdowns to be over 20 points. If I need like a boom player, I would take, Mike Evans. But if you're just looking to stay consistent, it's hard to not have Chris Godwin.
See, I think I'd rather have Evans. I think right now I'm in the position, in some leagues I'm doing well, other leagues not so much. And I think I'm kind of at the point for the league I'm not doing well in. It's like, okay, just hit the pause button and just wait and see where things shake out. Because, think about even a guy like Trey McBride last year. I mean, he was a nobody at this time. and then he
Yep.
came on the scene later on and dominated. So we are really early in the season. I know Chris Godwin's been great the first 6 weeks. Does he carry on throughout the entire year? Or does Mike Evans kind of reprise his role as the number one threat in the offense and getting those 1,000 yards and multiple touchdowns that you expected he would get? So I like your suggestion of Mike Evans, because at the end of the day, if we look at history, the past indicates that he should continue to have success. So he hasn't so far. So if that owner is an 0-3 owner, or 1-2 for sure, I would think that actually vice versa there. If you're 0-3 for sure, he's maybe thinking about trading. 1-2, maybe not as much, but I think it's worth kicking the tires on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, people these days don't have patience either, and I feel like people are quick to kind of hit that panic button. So you may be surprised, some of the deals you might be able to pull off here.
Joe, that sounded like a boomer saying. Are you becoming a boomer now?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Kids don't have patience these days.
Well, look, man, people want to crap on our generation, but I feel like we are more patient than even the younger generation after us.
Probably.
So I think
Every generation going forward is probably going to be more and more impatient.
Yeah. So, I mean, I see it alone with, my wife and everything. So I feel like, I feel like it's just, going to get worse with attention spans and patience and everything else.
Speaking of attention spans, I'm going to go to the next one, and we're going to be talking about my last player to trade for. That's going to be WR Davante Adams. It might be a little bit of a shocker, being that he hasn't, recently hasn't done all that much. He did have 9 targets, 4 catches for 40 yards. It was kind of a dud game for the Raiders against the Carolina Panthers. You would have thought that he would have done a really good job, but he really didn't. He had a massive game the week prior against Baltimore. 12 targets, 9 catches, 110 yards, and a touchdown. I just have a feeling, and I could be wrong about this, it almost seems like Antonio Pierce is kind of flying by the seat of his pants. And I don't know if Davante Adams fits this team long term. I really believe, especially if he feels that there are certain players that are not, are kind of not handling their own business and not handling the Raiders'
Making business
business.
decisions.
Making business decisions. There you go. I think that it could be very possible that the Raiders could be making a business decision, and I think Davante Adams could get traded on this team. And I think if he goes somewhere else, you're going to be looking real pretty. So I would say I would trade for him. I would be willing to trade away someone like Brandon Ayuk, someone like Deebo Samuel, even a guy like Drake London. I think you could probably get Drake London. You could get Adams plus if you trade away Drake London, to me, he's a guy, and Aiden O'Connell, when he came in, if he does become a starter, he peppered Adams with targets. So I still think Adams can be relevant if he stays with the Raiders, but if he goes somewhere else, he could be even more relevant. So to me, he's intriguing.
Yeah, it is interesting. You mentioned Pierce kind of flying by the seat of his pants. I mean, I feel like a perfect example is that just him flirting with the idea of, making a quarterback change, despite just, losing against the Panthers after they made the quarterback change and everything else. But you're not wrong. Like if Aiden O'Connell does become the quarterback there in Las Vegas, I would be more excited about Davante Adams. I thought Minshew would be better at supporting him thus far. I mean, he's really only had the one good game. Minshew seems to like throwing it to Brock Bowers quite a bit. I know he even had a down game this past game, and Trey Tucker out of nowhere surprised. But if O'Connell does come in there, I mean, like you said, he absolutely just peppered Davante Adams, and I feel like that would almost make Davante Adams happy too if O'Connell came in, just because he knows that they seem to have a rapport, and O'Connell just is like, forget it. Davante Adams down there somewhere.
Well, in my opinion too, and I don't know Antonio Pearson. I'm sure he won't ever listen to our podcast. But I don't mean anything against the guy, but it just seems a little impulsive to me. I know you had a really bad loss against the Panthers. I don't know if your back's up against the wall or not, but I'm glad he talked to his players. Sounds like he's like maybe he was thinking about. He talked to the key leaders of the team and then decided not to. Maybe it was just in the heat of the moment, but. just seemed like kind of was flying off the handle a little bit. I think, we'll see. I know they want to succeed in Las Vegas. Every team does, but, we'll see how things shake out, coming in the next few weeks. I wonder if the pressure is going to start to heat up over there.
Yeah, it definitely could. It's just interesting. Like they're, 1-2 after the loss in, to Carolina, but they were just coming off a really good win against the comeback win over the Ravens. Just so interesting, like how fast the downfall is. And that's kind of the scary part of just the fact that he was already thinking a possible quarterback change just after, riding the high and, he's hugging guys on the sideline after that win. And then all of a sudden he's talking about making a quarterback change. Just wild.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I just don't, I think it's too rash, but cooler has prevailed, seemed like. So,
Yeah.
For now, anyways.
For now, that's the thing, man. Like if they come out and don't win this week, then it's like, do all those thoughts just resurface?
Could very well happen. So that does it for this episode. We talked about some week 4 trade targets that we recommend you reach out to those owners, see if you can't get a deal done. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.